This video is sponsored by Motion VFX. Last year, we made a video about the Salt Remote for Apple TV, which was an alternative to the Siri Remote that comes with your current Apple TV. The downside was that you couldn't really purchase that remote here in the US, or really anywhere else aside from Switzerland for the most part. Enter the new button remote from Function101, and you pretty much have the exact same concept, except for those who live in the US like myself, you can now purchase this Siri Remote alternative for only $30. And from a look standpoint, this remote is nearly identical to that of the Salt Remote that we checked out last year, but in comparison to the Siri Remote, there's obviously a lot of differences. It's bigger, thicker, and offers more physical buttons over Apple's touchpad-based remote. Now, because of its size, you should, in theory, have a harder time losing this remote between couch cushions, unlike the Siri Remote. Now, the biggest complaint that people have had with the Siri Remote is just how hard it is to navigate using the touchpad sometimes, and the swipe gestures that it requires in order to get around tvOS. A personal complaint on my end is that the Bluetooth connection isn't always great, especially with the other devices nearby that could disrupt that connection. But thankfully, the remote also uses IR blasters to communicate, but at times, I find that it just struggles to remain consistent and it's kind of laggy. This isn't the case with all of my Apple TVs, but it happens from time to time. This button remote fixes those issues since you have directional physical buttons used to navigate throughout the UI, and this remote strictly uses IR. Unfortunately, if you're someone who does not have a clear line of sight from the remote to your Apple TV, maybe you tuck the Apple TV box behind your TV for a cleaner look, this remote will most likely not work out for you. As far as the physical buttons go, you do get all the basic necessities that one would need to navigate throughout your Apple TV, like directional arrows, an OK button for selecting items, the menu button to go back, volume and program toggles, and your media playback controls. Now, there is one crucial piece missing from this remote compared to the Siri Remote, and that's Siri. For those of you who use Siri to search for content, ask questions, interact with HomeKit devices, etc., that could be a deal breaker for you. Now, at my house, we use Siri strictly to search for content instead of typing it out, but the frustrations that I have with navigation sometimes far outweigh the benefits of voice control. And so for me, I'd opt into picking one of these up, but everyone's situation is a little bit different. For those of you worried about the lack of home button, you can just hold down the menu button to go back to the home page if you want to. There's also one function of this remote that's infinitely better over the Siri Remote in my opinion, and that's skipping forward or back 10 seconds. I use this feature quite a bit, and with the Siri Remote, it's almost impossible for me to find the right spot on the control pad to make this work 100% of the time. In fact, even simply fast forwarding throughout a TV show can be a pain. With the button remote, you have buttons dedicated for those specific functions, and it's obviously much easier to work with. Other than that, it's a pretty basic remote. It does all of the basic things that one would need, and there's no flashy features. I like the fact that you don't need to charge your remote as you would with the Siri Remote, even though the battery life on a Siri Remote is pretty good. When your battery starts to die, that can get kind of frustrating having to find a charger and get it plugged in. With this remote, you need to have some batteries on hand, as it does require 2 AAA batteries, but I feel like battery life on my Salt Remote, which again is very similar to this one, has lasted a very long time, and so I kind of prefer going the battery route. As I mentioned earlier, the Function101 button remote is available now through the company's website for only $30, with new orders beginning to ship next week. And I highly recommend giving it a try if you're someone who does not like using the Siri Remote. Before we end today's video, I do want to give you more information about today's sponsor, Motion VFX. If you haven't heard of Motion VFX yet and you're a content creator, well, buckle up because your life is about to get a lot easier. You might have seen some fancy animations or graphics popping up throughout most of our videos, and as much as I would like to say I created those beautiful transitions or animations myself, I did not. Work smarter, not harder, with over hundreds of different plugins and templates from Motion VFX. They are hands down the best resource for Final Cut Pro 10 and Motion plugins and templates. Installing a plugin is as easy as one click from the Motion VFX menu bar app, and customizing the plugins all takes place directly inside of Final Cut Pro. Just drag and drop your effect or transition into your timeline and edit from the inspector window. It's that easy. If you want a recommendation on what plugins to check out, I'd start with the M Lowers or M Transition Mega Packs. These are some of the best transitions and lower third graphics around, and there are so many different options to choose from that will definitely help take your videos to the next level and add that unique look and feel. Honestly, I use these plugins every day, and they are a huge tool for helping me create content faster and easier. So for more information about Motion VFX and those bundles that I talked about, click the link in the description down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.